Okay, apologize for the stoppage. Can't really stop. It was 20 minutes. But I just want to go ahead and finish the lesson. Okay, no big deal. All right, anyways, the Connecticut Compromise resulted in both the plans. In the Virginia plan, did we want the bigger states to have more representation or the smaller states?
Smaller. Like bigger.
Virginia.
Bigger.
Bigger. At one time, Virginia was the biggest state out of 13 colonies. And the way it worked out is, in the House of Representatives, does anybody know how many people are in the House of Representatives? It's not on there, I promise.
100. No, 50.
What was the question?
How many people are in the House of Representatives?
50?
200. 150.
14?
435.
Okay.
Oh my lord.
Hey, I was the closest to
Yeah.
It was literally right there on the board.
It was. Yeah, it's true. All right, so the way this works is now in our government, we have 435 people. Each state is broken down in congressional districts, okay? The bigger states have more congressional districts. Can somebody take a guess how much Georgia has?
14.
14, okay? 14 congressional districts. So, with that being said, how many representatives do we have from Georgia in the House of Representatives?
14.
14, okay? On the flip side, that was the Virginia plan, okay? They got it. The bigger states had more representation in Congress. They do, in the House of Representatives. On the flip side, the New Jersey plan won too. They were not only to have one vote, but they had two people. Okay, how many states are in the United States?
50.
50. 50.
I thought it was 52.
50. Two territories. Now, 50 times 2, what is that?
28.
50 times 2.
50.
Oh, what?
100.
100, okay. A little off there. Anyways, so Georgia has
100.
We already said that.
All right, so we have 14 representatives in Georgia to represent the House of Representatives for us. We also have 2 senators to represent. There's 2 per state, right? That was the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise. Okay, so you had Virginia that was for the bigger or smaller states. Virginia, bigger or smaller states.
Oh,
Bigger.
Bigger, okay, so we're representing more people in Congress. So they are, House of Representatives, okay? So like New York, Texas, California has more representatives, more congressional districts in the House of Representatives. Now, in the House of the Senate, how many people are allowed per state?
14.
In the Senate?
Oh, the Senate?
2.
2.
Equaling 100, okay? So that was your Congress, how it's formed now.
So is California a 13 colony?
No, it wasn't. Okay. I'm just telling you how it pertained then and how it pertains now. All right, now look, this right here. This was also an issue, okay? When you realize the 3/5 compromise counted each slave as 3/5 of a person, okay? That was a problem too. This was proposed by James Wilson and Roger Sherman. These were all delegates. These were part of the framers in the convention, okay? They had an argument as far as, do you count slaves, okay? Can somebody take a guess of who was for counting slaves?
The South.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, the North had stopping, so the North had been so.
The South, to boost their economy, okay? The North wasn't for it. So the way they thought is the North or the South said, they are people. We need to add it to our population. The North said, no, the way you guys treat them down here is as property. Because if that's the case, if you guys are going to count slaves, can I count my horses as people in the population? No, that's not how it works. So, in the compromise of the 3/5 compromise, I know this sounds terrible, hence the meme over here. Slaves were counted as 3/5 of the person. So, like right here. So, down here is a person. Okay? Could you imagine that? Being a slave? They couldn't help it. But this was, essentially a way to count them in representation as far as their population. Okay? Now, why do you think they want to count slaves?
To boost their economy.
Well, not to make that or boost the economy, but to add more people. Because in the Virginia plan, the bigger states had more representation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they did that. Okay? This is in the House of Representatives because we're talking about the Virginia plan. Okay? So, like I said, the framers, there were people at the convention. All right? 55 delegates attended, only 39 actually signed the Constitution. Okay? This kind of breaks it down into Federalists and Anti-Federalists. The Federalists, like James Madison, were for changing the Constitution. okay, from the Articles of Confederation. The Anti-Federalists were on the flip side. They did not want the Constitution to change. They wanted to keep the Articles of Confederation. They wanted the states to have power. So the Founding Fathers was George Washington. We already mentioned that he's from where?
Virginia.
Virginia, okay? He was a former soldier, and he was also a commander-in-chief in the French and Indian War, which is kind of ironic because in the French and Indian War, it wasn't necessarily with the Indians. Now, there were some, but we were still, this was before we had the Constitution, okay, and the Declaration of Independence. We were under British rule. So the way it worked, our U.S. colonies were invaded by France, okay? We were a part of Great Britain then. So essentially, in the French and Indian War, the French were coming in and taking away, our reserves for Indians. The Indians couldn't defend themselves, so who came to the rescue? We did, okay? We attacked them, we knocked them out, and we were safe, okay? But ultimately, French moved to Canada, and French took over Canada.
What's that guy's name that slaves used in the war? Like he was important. He was in the war.
In the war?
And he was a slave to it. I don't know. He was a famous African American who did something in the war. I don't know what he did, but he did something.
Okay, we'll go back to that. I think we came like frozen. Anyways, Thomas Jefferson, he developed the Declaration of Independence. Okay, does anybody know when we signed the Declaration of Independence?
19.
Oh, not 19.
17.
1775.
Oh, close.
1776.
Okay. So,
1976.
moving on. John Adams, basically, he was the second president. He was a delegate from Massachusetts. Benjamin Franklin, he was the only founding father to sign those four documents: the Treaty of Alliance with France, the Treaty of Paris, Declaration of Independence, and the U.S. Constitution. James Madison is the father of the what?
Constitution.
Okay. John Jay, he was an important member. All you need to know, he was the first Chief Justice appointed by the first president, who was George Washington. Okay. And then, go back. Alexander Hamilton, he wrote the Federalist Papers, basically saying that we are for the change in the Constitution. Okay. We're kind of zoomed by this. Basically, they debated over 15 points in the Virginia Plan. They decided whether or not they wanted bigger representation in the House of Representatives, and they got their way. Okay, but the small states also did because we have 2 Senates per state. Federalists were for the development of the strong central government. The federal government means the government has power, and then anti-federalist is opposed. Okay, and lastly, main functions of the Constitution: America and the free. I'll see that. All right. So
Sanders president.
they were to create a national government through the federal system. So there is a legislative, there's an executive, and a judicial. Okay. Legislative, the Congress, they make the laws. Executive, they enforce the laws. Okay. So the president can sign in laws and veto them as well. Okay. And then judicial is just interpreting law. When you go to court, what are they looking at?
The reason why.
They're looking at the reason why you're in court, and then they decide whether or not you get convicted of any crime. All right? They interpret the law. They literally look at the laws in the Constitution, and if you fail to abide by it, you're in trouble. Okay? And also divided power between federal government and state, because if we had a straight Confederate government, and we had all the states control the government, essentially, we would be in a lot of mess. Okay? So that's why there's a governing agency that we follow laws, and we have a structure. We have an executive branch who enforces the laws, we have a president who represents our country, legislative, we have 2 forms of Congress, House of Representatives, House of the Senate, and then we have judicial. We have magistrate court, you have Supreme Court, civil court, you know it. Okay. Okay, cool. Kind of zoom by that. All right, I'm turning lights on. Okay. Now there's a thing known as the Bill of Rights. Okay. The questions of that we will get to, but I just want to show you the first one for now. Okay. So we walk out here, we're going to know the first one. I know we said the 10, but we'll try to do to time. I want to review the sheet and make sure I'm on the same page. Okay? So, the first amendment that was proposed in the Constitution, okay, was, everybody do this with me. All right, first one, Pointing up. Okay?
Freedom of religion.
Okay? This is freedom of religion. Okay? Now here. This is freedom of speech. Okay? Freedom of the press. The right to peacefully assemble. And the right to petition. Okay? Now let's try that.
Religion.
Okay?
Beach.
Alright, so talk with your partner right now and go over the first one.
Religion.
Okay?
Speech. Press. No.
Freedom of religion.
I don't know this one.
What is that?
The right to peacefully assemble.
And a right to
And
petition.
the right to petition. Make sense?
Religion.
Okay.
Speech.
Are we good here? Alright, what is the
Assemble.
first one?
I don't know the name.
Freedom of religion.
Go right
Freedom of
here.
speech.
Then we go right there.
Freedom of press. The right to peacefully
Then
assemble.
we go right
And the right to petition.
there. I got it.
Cool?
Yeah.
Alright, let's review. Okay, just for the first one, then we'll review the sheets, then we'll be done. First one,
Religion.
freedom of religion, freedom of,
Speech.
freedom of the,
Press.
okay, you know what I mean, freedom of the press?
No.
We have the freedom to essentially,
Press on.
well, not necessarily press, the press like the media, okay? We have a say in media, okay? And then the right to
Assemble.
peacefully assemble, okay, you ever seen, peaceful
Petition.
riots?
No, they never come out
Well,
peaceful.
they're not really peaceful. Essentially, they're supposed to be peaceful. Okay, we have the right to that, and the freedom. And then the last one, we have the right to
Assemble.
Assembly.
Petition.
petition. You know what a petition is? Okay, so if I had a document that said, all right, I, Coach P, believe that we should have school on Saturdays, too.
That's
Okay? Now, the way it works is I would go around and get signatures. Would you sign my document?
Yes.
You would? School on Saturday?
Yep.
Okay. School on Saturday?
Wait, depending on how many school days we have.
We still keep the same thing. We're just adding another day.
Oh, then no, I wouldn't sign it.
What about you? We're getting it. There is none, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, or there might be one yes, okay? So one more time and we'll be done. One more time we'll be done. All right, first one. Freedom of
Religion. Speech. Freedom of
Press.
Assemble.
the right to peacefully assemble and the right to
Petition.
petition. All right, and we're good. Thanks, guys.